This is Q13 News This Morning with Kaci and Travis.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're glad to be here, at least as glad as we are to be here. I'm Travis.
And I'm Kaci. Here's what we're focusing on for you this half hour. What is art? It's a very serious question. Does it hang on a wall? Does it stand in bronze in a museum? Or could it be a wedding cake? Why the Supreme Court could soon decide on that question ahead.
Also, average moms and dads looking for information from their schools, from public leaders, finding themselves drug into court facing a judge. Why freedom of information doesn't feel so free right now.
Very interesting stuff. And who do you think drops out of school? The image that just came to your mind probably isn't right. We'll unmask the real reasons kids drop out and what might actually keep them in school.
And turning to Tyler, what are we asking folks over on Facebook?
Could you go vegan? We want to know. We're talking to someone who did just that. Facebook.com/Q13Fox. What food could you not give up? We want to know.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Thanks, Tyler. But first, we're starting with, this is a very serious story, a developing humanitarian crisis that maybe you haven't even heard of yet. It sent hundreds of thousands of women and children fleeing from their burning homes.
It is happening in the country of Myanmar, which we wanted to show you on this map, where it is in Southeast Asia. The country is majority Buddhist, but it has a small population of ethnic Muslims as well. And that smaller population has been hated in that country and really ostracized for a century at least. Now, since late August, that conflict has completely reignited, and we wanted to dig into exactly why this is happening.
So we're going to try to break this down for you. The Muslims in question are ethnically Rohingya. They've lived in Western Myanmar for generations, but the rest of the population of the country believes they belong in the neighboring country of Bangladesh. The Rohingya are so hated, the government doesn't even recognize them legally as citizens of Myanmar. In late August, a small group of Rohingyas started attacking the official police and military.
And that's where the response from the military sparked this: burning of homes, destroying of villages. Then Buddhist vigilante groups sprung up as well, bringing even more fear and death and destruction to the Rohingya population. So UW professor Mary Callahan actually studies Myanmar, has for years. We found her in Myanmar. We reached her by Skype and we asked her about the scope of the destruction.
In one township called Maundor, for example, virtually every single Muslim village has been depopulated. Not all have been burned to the ground, but they have been depopulated. In another township, 18 of 24 have been depopulated or burned to the ground. And there is no humanitarian assistance of any international variety. And international is important because of the principles of humanitarian assistance, of neutrality and impartiality. At this point, the only aid going into any of the victims is going in via the government, and that is neither impartial nor neutral.
So let's give you a better idea of the breakdown on these numbers. In just the last few weeks, 420,000 Rohingyas have fled Myanmar over the border to Bangladesh. The number of Rohingyas killed in this so far is simply unknown.
Because we can't even get aid groups in there to know. But world leaders are now using the phrase ethnic cleansing. And this week, many at the UN demanded Myanmar's leader to do something.
What the rest of the world would like to hear at the most basic level is some degree of compassion for those who have fled, and we have yet to have heard that from her. She has instead said yesterday in a speech that she just doesn't understand why people are fleeing, and she has to get to the bottom of that.
So the leader in question here is this woman, Aung San Suu Kyi. She won the Nobel Peace Prize several years ago as she fought for human rights for those living in Myanmar. Now she's basically silent on the question of ethnic cleansing for the Rohingya population. Some have said that her name should be scrubbed from that Peace Prize until she actually figures out what's going on, because so far they say she's betraying the principles that prize stands for.
It's such a complicated issue, so it's definitely something we're going to be watching.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, the U.S. Supreme Court is heading back into session very soon, and one of the cases everyone has their eyes on, whether a man who calls cake making his art had a right to refuse that art to a gay couple. Here's the article in the New York Times. Cake is his art, so can he deny one to a gay couple? Jack Phillips is the baker in Colorado, and 5 years ago, he refused to make a wedding cake for David Mullins and Charlie Craig. The couple then filed civil rights charges, alleging discrimination. Well, they won their case in the lower courts and in front of the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, but now the highest court in the land is weighing in. Phillips argues his rights to free speech means he cannot be forced to use his artistic expression as a baker and decorator to endorse an event that he says violates his religious faith, the wedding of a same-sex couple. Now, the Supreme Court ruled in 2015, as you may know, that same-sex marriage was a constitutional right. That's why all eyes are on this case. This could set a huge precedent, not just for the rights of same-sex couples, but also for faith-based business owners who are making similar arguments. Court watchers expect this could be a close one, too. Justice Anthony Kennedy, a potential key voice in this. Here's why. He's known to be the strongest supporter of both sides of this issue, one of the strongest supporters on the High Court of free speech and gay rights. And with those being the arguments of both sides, it could get really interesting. So they're expected to take this case on later this fall. Now, interestingly enough, Phillips says he will make a cake for anyone, quote, gay, straight, Muslim, Hindu, as he says in the article. And he says all are welcome in his shop. So he has no problem serving anyone, he says. He says what the cake was for, a same-sex wedding that he didn't want his work supporting. And when a judge in a lower court ordered that he only make cakes for opposite-sex couples if he also made them for same-sex couples, Phillips said, no more wedding cakes. So he says it's actually hurt his business.
It's interesting because we have a similar case going on here in Washington, the case in the Tri-Cities area. So this case could help sort out that case as well. I think we'll have to find out.
Definitely.
All right, thanks, Kaci. So schools, city councils, governors, they all prefer to do things honestly in secret. So if we want to know what's really going on, we usually have to do a little digging. And one thing we can do is request records. Anybody can do it. I can do it as a journalist. You can do it. But now a growing number of government officials and public agencies are kind of fighting back in a little bit of a scary way. And they are dragging those of us who might be asking for these documents into court. Here are a couple of examples. In Portland, for example, a parent wanted to know about school employees on paid leave and ask for records. So the school district said, not so fast, we're suing you instead. Also, this happened in Louisiana, where a retired teacher wanted to see documents on student performance, asked for those records. Officials sued that teacher. And then it happened in Kentucky. A newspaper there, a college newspaper, asked for documents for college staffers accused of misconduct. And the college, the paper's own college, sued their own students. So Q13 News investigative reporter John Humbert asked for hundreds of documents from public officials for his stories every year. So we turned to him and asked, what about this?
There is a battle over where does private and public kind of intersect and cross. And I think that's where you've seen some of these lawsuits, that it's more that they don't want, mom and dad to take a look at some of this stuff, but they don't want their sort of precedent of privacy to be infringed on. And again, this gets to one of those balances that if we're paying your salary as taxpayers, we're going to actually have some accountability requirements to go along with that.
And that is the big question. The goal maybe appears to be to kind of scare people from making these kinds of requests so the public agencies can keep doing some of their business in secret. But so far, every time one of these cases has ended up in a court, a judge has sided with the citizens.
It's definitely a new world where the governments are fighting back, but that'll give courts the opportunity to kind of say, all right, this is off limits, this is on limits.
So Michigan is actually one of the states working to outlaw this practice. Other states could follow. But for now, if you want public records, gear up because the public agency might take you to court.
It's crazy how things have changed with that, Travis, so
That's right.
Definitely something to watch. Well, Washington State's graduation rate, speaking of schools, as we started, is inching closer to 80%, but that's still lower than the national average. And now a book goes behind the scenes of what causes kids to drop out. It's called Why We Drop Out, and the authors talk to 53 former students living here in the Puget Sound area.
So joining us this morning, one of the authors, Barbara Waxman, a professor at Western Washington University in Bellingham. Good morning. So in your book, you talk about these sort of 4 steps that students take and kind of end up dropping out. Could you kind of walk through that process for us?
Sure. So there's an initial disengagement process where kids get turned off to school for some reason. It could be social, where they don't feel like they're part of the social group, or they feel or are experiencing being bullied. Another one might then be not having success in school, like especially having trouble perhaps with math. And then they begin to skip. or think maybe there's something better outside of school and more interesting outside of school. And then the skipping increases until eventually they drop out.
And you mentioned all those steps as reasons why they would drop out, but a lot of these students started out loving school.
Exactly. So this was one of the most interesting findings. We asked them about their school experiences beginning with elementary school, and it turns out that they liked elementary school. They had warm, fond memories of their teachers. They felt connected. They felt a relationship. They enjoyed the activities in school. And it wasn't until middle school where they felt like, oh, this is not for me.
So what can parents watch out for? I mean, if you think your kid loves school and then suddenly they're skipping or dropping out, I mean, that seems like a pretty shocking thing. What are things I can watch for as a parent?
So you really should watch for how kids are doing in school. Where are they having difficulties? Learning issues is a big, big factor in dropping out. And when those learning issues go unmet and undealt with, then kids become more and more disengaged. So watch for those learning issues. Another one is, how connected does the child feel to school? Do they feel like they belong, or do they feel like they don't belong? And then, of course, watch for things like drinking and drugs and alienation.
What about socioeconomic status? Did that play a role and factor in?
It's a huge factor in this. While overall the graduation rate is around 89%, if you look at low-income students, it's way more than that. So almost 1 in 4 don't graduate.
Is there anything schools or districts or teachers could be doing? I mean, you hear about truancy boards.
Yes.
I mean, everybody wants to solve this problem, for example, but what could work?
So I think you really need to track kids really well. You need to really think about transitions, especially to middle school, where suddenly you're just changing classes all day long. And also the transition to 9th grade, which is a huge thing. And so you need to really think about how to make those transitions easier for kids. And then you need to think about tracking those learning issues so that if there are problems with learning, they're dealt with, and that teachers know about it in the next grade. And then you need to make, really work on the culture of the school and make sure kids feel a sense of belonging and that they're valued and that there's some adult in the school that really cares about you.
What for you is the most surprising finding?
So I think thinking about their elementary school experiences was one, that they really did like school. It wasn't until secondary school that they became so disengaged and disenchanted. And the other was how regretful they were about dropping out. We asked all the youth, what would you say to your younger self as they were thinking about dropping out? And they went, don't do it. Ugh. Stay, somehow find a way to stay. They all regretted leaving, but also felt, in some cases, like they were really pushed out.
So if parents, teachers, schools, friends could figure out a way to help them from the beginning, it sounds like that could be the answer.
That's one partial answer. And then also really inquiring, you asked about parents watching or teachers watching kids for signs. Also when kids misbehave, when they act out, there's always a reason. So don't just suspend or expel them. Find out what's going on. It really is a sign and a message that needs to be taken seriously.
Barbara Waxman, thank you so much.
Sure.
Really interesting insight. We've been talking about this book. It's again called Why We Drop Out. We posted a link to buy it on our website. Just head to Q13fox.com and click on links you saw on TV.
Thank you.
So are you a vegan? Could you go vegan? One local carnivore did it, and then put their money where their mouth is and started a new vegan burger joint in Seattle.
We have a lot of questions for him as non-vegans, so we're going to see if he can convince us to taste some of the things he brought with him and maybe convince you to consider a few new things. Stick around.
Welcome back. So you might have noticed that there's been a lot of talk these days about people choosing to go vegan, having conversations about whether they could go vegan or not.
Yeah, it feels like more and more, too. We'll admit we love the idea of a good steak or cheese on a pizza, so we're wondering, could we ever go vegan? I mean, completely or even just a couple days a week?
Okay, so we asked a guy who did it.
Yes, indeed.
Matt DeGrudy, you're the co-founder and CEO of Next Level Burger, Seattle's only, 100% vegan burger joint?
Actually America's first 100% plant-based burger joint. So this has never existed before.
I'm starving just looking at this stuff and smelling it.
Good, that's the goal.
A lot of people freak out about the idea of vegan. It just feels too extreme.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that what you hear from people?
Well, you know, You'll notice that I said plant-based burger joint. Vegan, that term can be very polarizing. And our goal from the beginning was to build a concept that was all about inclusivity. It's about feeding everyone. It wasn't this highbrow or super kind of organic experience. It was, do you like burgers? Do you like shakes, chili cheese dogs?
Yes.
What if you could, and what if you could eat that, feel fantastic while you eat it, and then also feel fantastic after you eat it, as opposed to going home, taking a nap. I mean, literally, this is fuel for life.
Okay, that all sounds amazing. I'm going to play skeptic because I know people are watching this going,
please.
okay, yeah. Like you're talking about all of that in correlation with a great burger.
Yeah.
How did you come up with a great burger that is plant-based?
So my wife is the better looking, more intelligent half of our partnership.
Well
and
said.
Yes, well, it's also true. It's just good advice
love
for
that.
those out there. And she's the brilliant mind behind our menu. My background was in private equity. Her background was in not being able to cook at all. Literally, she almost burnt down our first apartment making pork chops in college. Yes, well, and it was, but when we had our son was on the way, she decided, hell or high water, she was going to figure out how to become a master chef. And she has just developed into an unbelievable chef who's now either directly or indirectly fed hundreds of thousands of people through Next Level Burger.
Awesome. Well, you have a hot plate in front of you.
Yes.
So
Let's
while
get
we
to
talk,
it.
let's get to making this, because and we'll talk a little bit as we go. So are you seeing an influx of more people who are saying they're interested in this sort of going after plant-based lifestyle?
Huge. It's insane, guys. When I wrote the business plan for Next Level Burger in 2013, a third of the country was actively reducing their meat and dairy consumption, primarily for health reasons.
Yeah.
Now, that number, 3.5 years later, is 2/3
my
of the country. So you're talking 110 plus million people today, over 3 years ago, are now looking to actively reduce their meat and dairy consumption. Top reasons are health reasons and also climate change. People understand that what they eat has a big impact on the planet that we all share. And whether you've got kids, nephews, nieces, or just give a gosh darn about human civilization, we're all starting to really weigh the impact of our decisions a lot more.
But then how do you make the burger? That's like
You mean like
you
what
have
the heck
me
goes
sold.
into it?
Right.
Everything you say, I'm like, that sounds amazing. I'll do it too. But then there's this little tiny voice that says, but burgers are delicious. So what is this made out of?
Yes, and that is, you know, have your cake and eat it too,
Yeah.
is why I want you to come to Next Level Burger. You can get an awesome burger, whether it's made out of organic fair trade quinoa or a combination of vegetables or non-GMO wheat, non-GMO soy. We have a full spectrum of burgers. And of course, today what we're going to sample here is our blue barbecue burger with our signature. This is our top-selling patty. It's an umami mushroom patty. Phenomenal, 100% organic, made in-house from scratch, topped with organic lettuce, onions, blue cheese, house-made barbecue sauce on an ancient grain organic bun. Or you can get crazy.
That is a
plant-based.
crazy
Yes, this is the only thing I have anything to really do with on our menu. This is the animal. The animal cometh, guys. This is the plant-based tower of awesomeness, and it is not for the faint of heart. I mean, it is just.
You literally had to put a knife in this thing to hold it together. That is how crazy that is.
It has kicked the door down good, guys. And so I'd love for you to try that for sure.
So okay, so you said mushroom. What else is in this patty? What makes the patty?
So literally organic vegetables, mushroom, garbanzo beans, spices, and then we top it with the organic tempeh bacon, which is amazing. And actually, here I got
Tried that.
Oh, well, what's great about tempeh is it's thousands of years old from Asia, and it's super high protein, very low calorie, and whole foods based. So it's a winning combination from A to Z.
Is the goal to try and fool me into thinking that I'm having beef or pork or whatever, or is it to create an experience that's equal to having a beef or pork giant burger?
What would you like to come in for?
All right.
Because that is literally the answer to that question is we have a full spectrum of burgers that can literally satisfy the craving for the animal burger, that dripping down your elbows goodness with extra napkins. Or you can get one of like our signature burger, for example, which this is the cousin of. It shares the same patty, which is going to be topped with organic avocado, garlic thyme mayo, and is going to be super light, refreshing, and leave you charged up. Literally, you can pick either one. And the cool thing about our concept is a hardcore carnivore like myself back in the day, eating 7 to 8 pounds of red meat a week, can enjoy a burger right next to somebody that's a hardcore vegan yoga teacher. And that's amazing.
Let me back up a bit, because I think some people might still be confused about what we mean when we say vegan, because I know I hear vegan and I still just think no meat, but we're talking no dairy, nothing that has ever, what about honey? Like what
Now, okay,
what
so
does that
I
mean?
am technically not vegan because I do every once in a while consume honey.
Right.
So the nomenclature that I'm comfortable with, and it's really one that I think, like I said, is representative of what we want to achieve insofar as being an inclusive concept, is plant-based.
Okay,
and my kids are plant-based, my wife is plant-based, and really that was the origin of this story, was we wanted a place to take our kids that was all plant-based, all organic produce, and non-GMO. I don't know if, obviously, you're expecting, is this your first?
No, I've just had a lot of burgers.
Exactly. So, is this your first?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So, there's this moment when you take your kids out to eat where you're either guilty or not guilty, because you know they're eating something either awesome for them or not. And quite often the answer to that, of course, is you feel guilty. Yeah. And how cool is it to be able to take your kids out for burger, shakes, fries, and feel fantastic about the whole experience, what they're eating, where it came from, and what the impact that you're either having or not having on the planet.
So we're out of time, but we want to try it. You've convinced us.
So
I want to try it. So.
Yes, dig in. And which one of you is the braver of the two?
I mean, I would volunteer.
We both are.
But yeah, I mean, I think we're both
brave.
Who has the biggest mouth? Because the answer for that for me, between me and my wife, is always me. Because that's the person that recommends tackling that.
Oh, you see that?
I have a big mouth.
And then that, of course, being our blue barbecue. So the moment of truth.
This is going to be making a
And Matt,
giant
thank you
mess.
so much again for doing this.
Absolutely.
Tell us where you are and where people can find you.
So we built a 2,000 square foot plant-based burger joint at the very front of the Whole Foods Market, Roosevelt neighborhood. And it has been off the hook, guys. So we'd love to have you down.
Nextlevelburger.com. I was skeptical. This is actually really good.
Yes, and good for you.
I know you know that, but I just want to say.
And good for you. What an unbelievable combination that is.
And we're asking folks over on Facebook for responses as well for that. So Tyler will join us in just a minute. We'll be back right after this.
If we don't eat all this.
So Tennessee Titans, we are headed your way for the first time. Seahawks headed there in 12 years to Nashville.
And this comes after losing in Green Bay as everybody enjoys the burgers over here and winning a pretty ugly game at home last week.
So we ask our expert Ian Furness for some keys to the game. Let's start with number one, win in the red zone. Last year, Tennessee was the best red zone team in the NFL.
Strength versus strength. Tennessee's offensive line, which can make us a little jealous, versus Seattle's defensive line. That's going to be a battle for the ages. And stop the drops, please. Seahawks wide receivers dropped way too many balls against San Francisco last Sunday. They're going to have to be a lot better against the Titans.
So we've been asking you over on Facebook about whether folks could go vegan, could not. What are folks saying?
Well, the vegans are here. We have a lot of proud vegans
good.
on our
Yay.
Facebook, so thank you for joining us. But of course, on the flip side, a lot of people like Elizabeth say they will not give up their bacon. They will not give up their steak.
The tempeh bacon was actually pretty
really good.
I was really surprised.
I tried it too. It is really good. Some people say they're willing to try it, though. Ray says his wife is going to make him do it for 30 days, and he's up for the challenge.
I like it.
So a lot of people are considering it.
I mean, you don't have to go full vegan or whatever. You can define it for yourself. I mean, that's what you were saying, which I think was a great idea.
Pick and choose.
Yeah. I feel like I've got it dripping down my face.
No, you don't. You look good. I
look
kept an
great.
eye on you.
Amazing. We should take that overhead shot so we can see them one more time.
Have a good one, everyone.